I just got done with watching Sonic 3 in theaters for the third time because yes, it is that good. And no, I didn't really need to do that because this movie is doing well. Very well, in fact. It's killing the box office and is the second most popular video game adaptation franchise. That's an achievement given to other video game movies, and the one thing I have to respect Sonic 3 for is keeping it faithful for the audience. We all know the live and learn scene, but the way they adapted Shadow and Maria into this movieverse was so well done, and it honestly doesn't just fit the movie well, but the entire trilogy we've gotten so far. Shadow's story is about his loss for Maria and overcoming it during the movie. That's an oversimplification, but I don't think many people would disagree with that. The themes of loss and overcoming it are pretty direct and on the nose, but I think it's perfectly alright. A message is still a message. It doesn't need to be layered with complex visuals and dialogue that requires multiple watches. It's rated PG, which is essentially for all ages, and some of the best shows that are for all ages are ones that are entertaining to younger people while still having themes that adults can take in and appreciate. And I really like that Sonic 3 does it in a way that's more direct for the younger crowd, but has enough nuance for adults to piece together more of the themes in their own head. For me personally growing up, these more emotional themes didn't really hit me that hard until later on when I started experiencing them. I knew what the feeling was and acknowledged it, but using a comparison I made before, it was like reading a recipe and cooking. Two very different things, and as I grew older and started cooking in a sense, I started to understand the struggles and feelings that emerged from said emotional themes in movies and TV shows and the like. And watching Sonic 3 at the very mature age of 19, it hit more for me. The one thing that caught my eye with this version of Shadow is how hesitant he is. In his Sonic Adventure 2 counterpart, he was all on board with murdering humanity because of Maria. He interpreted Maria's last words as telling him to take revenge upon humanity, and it isn't until Amy talks to him they realize, wait, she did not mean that. Then he's like, alright, I'll help. To be fair to the game version of Shadow though, it was confirmed Gerald reprogrammed him to want to kill humanity, so I'll come some slack for this one. The movie version of Shadow is grieving. He's lost over 50 years of his life and is confused, going back to the only place he considered home. It's not his interpretation of Maria's last words that convinced him to destroy humanity, it's Gerald that sways Shadow to do so. We see his shock of losing Maria and how he wasn't even able to hear or say anything like her last words. He's still trying to comprehend what happened given he doesn't immediately just destroy everyone. Maybe he's trying to find within himself to deny what happened, and it's only until after he fully accepts what happened that his anger starts boiling for the next half century. He isn't even that aggressive initially, he just wants to be left alone, both by Gun and Sonic. He's just incredibly depressed and spends his time reminiscing on what was. He never had the chance to do so, and his feelings are still fresh, leaving him to be more susceptible to manipulation, leading to Gerald's introduction. Shadow in this movie is a lot more open-minded, if that's the way to put it, and it makes him so much more interesting in why he does what he does and how he interacts with other characters because of it. He questions things and isn't obediently blind, and most of all, he acknowledges his anger and frustration. He isn't irrational, or irrational to the extent that he goes bonkers insane compared to another certain hedgehog. When Super Sonic arrives just beat the hell out of Shadow, I was initially bit, and when Sonic does the whole, I'm nothing like you, when Shadow rightfully calls him out for agreeing like he did, but then I realized how carefully well made this movie was and how important this line really was in retrospect of the trilogy we have so far. This trilogy has always focused on aspects of loss and the different ways we cope with it and the consequence we have to deal with because of said coping. Sonic loses Longclaw and is left alone for years and one day lashes out because of those feelings, leading to the events of the entire series. He probably killed someone in the hospital because of that stunt, by the way. In the second movie, he has to deal with Knuckles, someone who's also experienced loss in the form of losing his entire tribe including his father. Sonic and Knuckles bond over losing the people closest to them, and we start to see how the movies depict the aftermath of loss. One where you become a parasocial psychotic freak in order to forget that you lost your only parental figure, and one where your life becomes dependent on the ones you lost. There is a huge point that needs to be made regarding Sonic and Knuckles' loss though. Both of them never saw their family die. They know their family's gone, but they didn't see the act of them being killed. This is what makes Shadow different. He saw her die. In a world that only saw him as a monster, the one person who saw him for more than that was killed and he's had to hold that pain for so long. While there are some similarities between how Knuckles and Shadow dealt with it, both using the loss of their loved ones to motivate them, they go in different directions because of their environment. I think it gets understated so hard how much Gerald had an impact on Shadow's mindset. Like, obviously Shadow's way more violent than Knuckles and isn't afraid to express his feelings through pain towards others, but it's not necessarily something he enjoys doing. Like I said earlier, he was just taking it all in after he wasn't given the chance to. Sonic had time to cope with his loss and decide what to do from there. Knuckles had time to cope with his loss and decide what to do from there, but Shadow wasn't, and it leaves him vulnerable. Then comes Gerald, who has had over 50 years to ponder how to deal with Maria's death, and takes full advantage of Shadow's relatively new thoughts. He's the one that keeps pushing Shadow towards his goal of destruction. That isn't about the lost Maria and her as a person, it's about everyone else and what they deserve, treating Maria as a reason rather than a person. It's why the conversation between Sonic and Shadow works really well. Shadow only knows pain, and he was pushed towards that path with the way he was treated by his enemies and his peers. Sonic has lived on the opposite side of this, losing the one he loved but being pushed towards the path of family and love with the Wachowski family. It's what makes this version of Sonic and Shadow's relationship more interesting, since they can relate to each other. And I remember reading the articles for Sonic 3 where Jeff Fowler, the director, stated the similarities between Sonic and Shadow and how Sonic wasn't going to be able to easily connect to Shadow easily at first compared to Knuckles because of how he lost Maria, and I was immediately on board when he said that. that. Sonic has to go through an almost similar experience of loss in order to fully understand him, and it helps with both of them understand that while that feeling of loss will never disappear, it's the memories and love of said person that we'll cherish and remember. And a key thing to note here is that Sonic doesn't know if Tom is alive or not, so this moment hits harder as they both accept their love for the people they lost, or potentially lost. The most unfortunate thing regarding Shadow though is the consequence we have to deal with because of how we react to the pain of loss. Sometimes the actions we do are irrational, sometimes it makes us naive in pursuit of a loss, and sometimes the actions are so extreme that we have to atone for them. The sad thing about the aftermath of loss is how positive it's been for the movie series so far. Sonic screwed up, kickstarting the entire movieverse, but was able to find a family that loved him. Knuckles stumbled along the way and almost got the world killed, but he was also able to join and have a family that loved him. But what does Shadow get? Nothing. After everything he's caused, he chooses to atone and accept punishment for what he's done. It's honestly really sad but realistic. Sometimes it isn't a necessarily happy end for the suffering you endured. I mean, think about it in a real life scenario. Let's say you lost someone, and for a while you become erratic and irrational, lashing out at your friends. Now, maybe it isn't too bad, and it's only once because you're going through it, but what if it gets worse? What if it gets to a point you're constantly in fights with your friends, and you begin cutting them off, or vice versa? Then, when you're finally able to overcome the loss, it's too late. You've already done too much damage for it to be easily repaired. Now, for Shadow, he accepts his unfortunate fate because he's responsible and feels the need to do the right thing and thanks Maria, even if it robs him of a future. We obviously know Shadow is alive and well, but the characters in the movie certainly do not, so it creates a bittersweet memory for Sonic, seeing that Shadow is the one person that didn't get to have that happy end. Of course, that could change in the future with a potential Shadow spin-off series, but within the context of the movie, I really like how it changed up the aftermath of loss, and that even though we can recover from the loss, sometimes the actions that we incur during the loss can't be or require a hefty price. I really love the Sonic movies, and talking about the third movie really made me realize the common theme of loss, and it's something I grow closer and closer to relating to as time goes by. I'd personally love to see it go even further. I know we have Sonic 4 with Metal Sonic and Amy, and the way Metal Sonic popped in seemed like he came from the future. Now I know it's gonna be CD based or Sonic Heroes based, but I would love for it to be tied into 06 in some way. We obviously know the Sonic movies are doing their own thing and tend to mix in a ton of elements from the games, so I don't think it'd be necessarily bad to do it here. Show Silver, someone who's probably gone through so much pain and loss in the apocalyptic future, being the last hope of humanity, someone who hasn't just experienced loss, but is still going through it on a scale that isn't limited to himself, but the entire world. The movies are already doing a sort of natural progression with certain topics. Sonic becoming more like his game counterpart is one of them, so why not do the same with the themes in the movie, aka loss? I'm just saying to bring in Silver, that's all. He's my favorite Sonic character, and he deserves so much redemption. I do not mean that in a sarcastic way in the slightest. Anyway, that's a short video on what I like about Sonic 3. Hopefully this video is short. This is literally a filler video. I made this in like a day or two. I'm currently working on a bigger project, so that has more priority. So, sorry Sonic 3, but you got crumbs. Anyway, bye. I just woke up. Go watch Sonic 3 on digital when it comes out, so we can get that Sonic 4 movie. Even though the movie's doing really well in theaters, just keep watching. Just keep talking about, keep spreading it around. You know, just watch it. Okay, bye. I'm leaving. Goodbye.